Now we should be live on both. I'm
What was
not
that?
saying we should be live now. Starting. Mixer's not showing it. Jason, if you can see us, say hi. Jason's saying hi. Actually, you're saying it's Friday. Right, we're popping up on YouTube. That's successful. Do we sound okay? Mixer's not showing it. Jason, I think so. Okay, appears we are showing up on Mixer as well now. All right, we should be ready to go in just a sec.
Oh, I should probably log into those. Nah, it's all right.
Look into what?
I like Mixer.
It's all right.
See if Mixer actually works. I'm going to send out the tweet as well.
Yeah, go on in. Might as well. Oh, I
You
should pull
are
up
mentioned.
the Windows blog so I can check what's new in the build that they released. Because I'll forget. We'll be starting in just a second. Just letting these stragglers tune in. We're back. We're live. Dan's here again. It's like he never left.
Sorry, guys. I'm back.
Oh, I should retweet. Man, I like the new Twitter PWA. I like its new dark mode. I just hate that if you use it from the Microsoft Store, it has that stupid white scroll bar still. Mm-hmm. How has that not been fixed?
Because they don't care, Zach.
They don't. You're right.
Is that white bar Enterprise? Is it powered by Azure? Yeah.
Hi, Jason. Jason's in the chat. Is that a taco sticker? Wow. Someone's asking, how was your concert? Did you go to a concert?
No, I was supposed to go to a concert. I didn't go to the concert because I had to leave for vacation. And was packing and had to mow the lawn. It was just too much. So
like
I did the old guy thing instead. Went out with my best friend. We just went out for dinner and drinks, which is
so
fun.
mature. Right, I'm ready to go when you are. We should get started.
Yep, I am now recording. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 143 for July 26th, 2019. Hey everyone, Dan Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast, where we talk all things Microsoft, Windows, Surface, Xbox, and what other cool tech stuff has happened in the week. This week we're going to talk about a new Windows 10 build for the Fast Ring, and this one has something we've been expecting for a while, but is now available, which is the new Cortana experience. And we'll walk through that, some other changes as well. There's also let's just say the Insider program had a little hiccup this week where something was released where it shouldn't have been released. And many people got next year's version of Windows 10. And as expected, we've been saying for a long time, there are some significant UI changes coming. A lot of these appear to be for Windows Lights, but may also be coming to Windows 10 Desktop. Of course, they are unfinished, which means, of course, no matter how much we say it's unfinished and don't judge it completely, everybody judged it completely because this is human beings and we're just terrible apes. But anyway, we're going to also talk about the new Xbox dashboard. Once again, the Xbox team has figured out a way to optimize the dashboard, but this time it actually really looks good. And so far, the feedback from it looks really fantastic. And I think I like this change a lot. It's really good. And finally, we talk about, Windows Phone, because we like torturing everyone. And the past doesn't die, despite what Kylo Ren wants us to do. So the HP Pro X3 was a Windows Phone that never came to be, although we did see it kind of leak out a little bit 2 years ago, and Zach managed to get one and basically reviewed it. So it's one of those things where what could have been had Windows 10 Mobile not been a complete and utter failure. So but let's start with the positive news. Zach, what's going on with this new build that just came out? To be fair, I think I have one laptop that's on the Fast Ring.
Same.
And the reason was for that because typically after, the last release comes out, they start up the Fast Ring again. It usually starts off pretty okay. And then things get rough in the middle, right? A lot of new bugs pop up
Hmm.
and, oh, you like to use Office? You can't in this build, things like that. It's like,
Yeah.
but this release is different. We've talked about this on previous podcasts where it's more of a cumulative update. It's a where you joke around, it's a service pack. Microsoft would probably hate us for calling it that, but it's less significant changes, more polish, and all this kind of stuff. Which means, I guess, in theory, it should be pretty stable to install
Yeah.
on most of our
So
devices.
19H2 is basically a cumulative update, and that's coming later this year. Today's build that rolled out is a 20H1 build, which could be a
Oh,
little bit more buggy and stuff, but so far the builds have been more than fine. I mean, there is a list of known issues, but they don't appear to be too major, and they haven't been this entire run for 20H1. 20H1 has had a longer development lead, but it's so far so good for most of the builds. I do have it running on one laptop, so my setup for the Insider program is I have all of my main PCs on 19H2 builds right now because there's basically no risk. And I have one dedicated Insider laptop that's on the fast/skip ahead ring whenever possible, which I do the build videos on and test all the new features that come out because I use that using like the United States version of Windows and stuff. So I get all the features that Microsoft is working on because, as we'll come to know, sometimes when they introduce new features, they're not always available to everyone straight away. So build 18945 was released to the fast ring and skip ahead rings about an hour ago. It's a very new build. And it introduces the new Cortana experience that we've been sort of talking a little bit about here and there on the podcast. It's the conversational experience, as we mentioned. It's like when you type in with a keyboard, you press enter, it comes up as a speech bubble. Then Cortana's response is just like another speech bubble, as if you were texting your friend or somebody in WhatsApp or iMessage or something. So it's a much more contextual conversational experience. And Microsoft says, highlights a few key things here. Cortana now supports both light and dark themes in Windows, finally. We've created a new, less intrusive screen for Hey Cortana queries so you can stay in the flow while you work. And we have updated Cortana with a new speech and language model and significantly improved performance, making it faster and more reliable than ever. So they sound like some nice improvements. An entire new UI, entire new experience.
Is that the semantic machine stuff? I believe
I don't know. I actually don't know.
It sounds like it.
I would be surprised if it wasn't, but
Yeah.
maybe. Oh, I haven't tried it yet, unfortunately, because it doesn't work in the UK. So that's what we're getting to now. Right now, it's only available to those in the US, and even if you are in the US, it's rolling out in waves. So once you install this build, if you don't see it yet, that's why. But Microsoft says additional markets and languages will become available at a later date. That's not reassuring because they said that about Cortana rolling out to more markets about 4 years ago, and that's not happened yet. So
USA,
yeah, no,
USA.
Listen, it sucks, Microsoft. If you're listening, it sucks, and I hate it every time you do this. But hopefully, additional markets means before RTM or 20H1 to the markets where Cortana is already available. I think it's available in how many markets? Like 5 or 7. The UK being one of them. Please at least roll it out to the UK by the time 20H1 is ready to go, because this new UI is really nice. Interestingly, if you go into the settings menu for this, it brings up the settings design found on Android and iOS, not the settings design found on PC currently, which I thought was an interesting change, but I guess it makes sense. I'm not. Maybe it'll make more sense down the line, but for now, it's looking good. Microsoft says not all features from the previous Cortana experience are available yet. I tried it the other day, and I asked what's the weather like, and it was like, I don't know. And then I just said weather.
What is weather?
Yeah, but if you just say the word weather, it knows how to do it. So there are some bugs here and there. But
the good news, of course, is this is now an app that can be updated through the store.
Which they don't highlight, surprisingly.
Yeah, they did. I thought they mentioned in notes. They said a new experience will be updated through the store.
Oh, did they say through the store? I missed that.
Yeah.
But okay, then, no, they don't. No, you're right. Yep, it says it there. So they do mention it, but yes, the new Cortana experience is updatable via the Microsoft Store, as it's now a universal Windows platform app, which will run across PC and whatever else Windows runs on. It's great. I mean, that's good. I mean, that's what we want from Windows, right? We want Microsoft to be able to update elements here and there where necessary, instead of being tied to twice a year feature updates, or in some cases once a year if it's 2019. So yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to this new experience. It's much better than the current Windows 10 one. It's because the current Windows 10 one is beyond awful. It's just really bad.
True.
Yeah.
True. So we do recommend, if you're a little bit feeling experimental, jump on that fast ring.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, give feedback. If something bothers you, something doesn't work, submit that feedback. I had to do it today for the Edge Canary build. Actually, Zach and I were talking about this before, where the latest Edge Canary screws up on Twitter where it doesn't show, or video gets basically demolished and it just drops frames on that. I just quickly sent feedback to the team, so hopefully they get it. And I know people have, mixed feelings about the whole feedback system. I'm less bitter about it. I don't look at the feedback system as me making demands to Microsoft that they are obligated to do. But I do think it's better than nothing. I think it's way better than Jesus. I mean, when you think about how they used to operate, like, Windows XP, Windows ME, even going, like, what was the feedback model for that stuff? How did they even know what people wanted? They just had to, like, design it, put it out there, and hope it worked. Windows 7 worked. Windows Vista and Windows 8 did not work. Mm-hmm. And so this is still a pretty good model. But yeah, I'll see about firing this stuff up over the weekend and give it a spin. I'm kind of excited about the Cortana stuff.
Another new change in this build is an updated File Explorer search. Now, this is something they announced back at the beginning of 20H1, I believe. It's just a new UI for the search box in File Explorer. They say it's rolling out to all insiders over the next few days. I assume all insiders on 20H1 builds only. What is specific about this new search? Hang on, let me find the notes here. So it's now powered by Windows Search, which I don't know what the difference is between File Explorers. I'm guessing Windows Search is global, so it's not just within File Explorer. This change will help integrate your OneDrive content online with the traditional indexed results. This rollout will start with blah, 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 blah. What does this mean for you? Once you have them experience, as you type in File Explorer's search box, you'll now see a drop-down populated with suggested files at your fingertips that you can pick from. These improved results can be launched directly by clicking on the entry in the new suggestions box, or if you want to open the file location, just right click the entry and there'll be an option to do so. So that's fun, I guess. It looks kind of nice. It's a cleaner UI, which is good to see. And then that's basically all the major stuff. There's some improvements to accessibility stuff, such as being able to change the color of the text cursor indicator. So that's something you like or need to do. You can do that. There's also improvements to Windows subsystem for Linux, which I'm not going to talk about because I don't understand it at all. But overall, actually kind of a big build. The new Cortana experience is the first big change to 20H1 on the surface, at least, that most insiders will be able to take note of and use. And I think it's a good update. I actually really am enjoying the new Cortana experience. It's really nice. If you are a Cortana user, of course, I don't know if this will convince new users to start using Cortana. I'm doubting it. But who knows? I guess we'll see.
But luckily, we expect some even more stuff coming with 20H1, if I'm correct.
That's true, yes. We
talk about this, the leakiness that happened this week.
Yeah,
where, first explain what happened, and then let's go through the build.
So this has actually happened before. Maybe it's not the same reason why, maybe it's a different issue, but the same sort of thing happened before, where an internal build of Windows 10 popped up in all of the insider rings, and even in some production rings, although there it doesn't install, luckily. An internal build that had not long been compiled, so it hadn't really been tested by Microsoft yet, began showing up in the skip ahead, fast, slow release preview rings, and started rolling out. And it wasn't just that it was an insider preview build that hadn't been tested yet, but for some people, an internal branch build started showing up in Windows Update as well. Internal branches are development, is where people at Microsoft, when they're building features, are able to sort of freely do things here and there without affecting the main branch that insiders test. So those internal branches usually have features that are way, like, not anywhere near being done, or like not coming to the insider program anytime soon, or in some cases not even intended to ship. They're just experiments and stuff. And one of the builds that leaked was from an RS_Xbox branch. The branch name is irrelevant. The fact that it's from the Xbox branch means nothing really in this context anyway. But why we're talking about it is because it was slightly newer than the build that was just released. It was 18947, and it had a few new features that Microsoft is working on for Windows Lite in it. So the start menu in this build, while not enabled by default, if you sort of hack around and enable some velocity features, you can show up, or you can enable the new start menu that Microsoft is building for Windows Lite. And now we've seen what it looks like. It's not finished. It's a very early sort of iteration of it. It's got a long way to go before it's done. Windows Lite isn't coming until next year anyway, so there's plenty of time. But if you've been interested in what the start menu might look like on Windows Lite, you can now see it because I've done a build video on it, and if you look online, there's images of it and stuff. Now, it does look ugly. Don't get me wrong. It's not a great looking start menu right now, but it is, I'm going to say alpha. It's an alpha version of the start menu. It's not done. It's still in development. The problem is, nobody seems to catch on to that, and everybody now thinks Windows Lite's going to suck, which is not true at all. So this is very unfortunate for Microsoft, because I think they've been trying really hard to keep Windows Lite stuff under wraps, and then this got out on their behalf. It wasn't even like a malicious thing. It was just a complete accident, an error on the server side of things, I believe. I mean, they haven't really given a proper explanation as to what happened. But it really is unfortunate, because now there's people online bashing this new start menu. Now, I do want to talk about the new start menu a little bit, because it's different from the current one. The live tiles are gone. Hooray, I was right, everybody. Remember that. When I said it earlier this year, live tiles are going away, and nobody believed me. This is where I got it from. The start menu doesn't have live tiles anymore. It's now just a grid of icons, which I believe makes more sense for Windows Lite, because it's a web-based experience. This new start menu is supposed to be very contextual. It can put things like websites in there and stuff automatically and whatnot, so they show up in your apps list, and it's all native to the experience. But the primary reason why they're getting rid of live tiles is A, nobody really uses them or cares for them, and B, developers didn't really take advantage of them much. It's easier for a developer to just make an icon that shows up in a start menu than it is for them to develop an entire live tile system for their app. So that's why they're getting rid of it. And I think this is the right call. Live tiles haven't really been a primary focus for Microsoft since the death of Windows Phone and Windows 8 even. Windows 8, they were front and center. Then Windows 10, they were tucked away in a menu that you can't even pin tiles to the desktop. They're in a menu you have to click on, and I think that's what ultimately killed them off on desktop. So yeah, it's not got live tiles.
Just like, I mean, the live tile thing is super controversial, especially for our audience, which tend to be a little bit more hardcore, and have been, with this whole thing for the long haul. You and I are both fans of live tiles, but we also recognize such a system made sense on phones. And it was kind of cool when they're like, we're going to bring it to Windows 8. And like, wow, they're really going all in with this Metro UI, which was called at the time. But the Windows 8 tanked, right? And perhaps Windows 8 was just too far ahead of its time. I think kind of the issue with Windows 8, and we talked about this with what we expect with Windows Lite, the difference is going to be. The problem with Windows 8 was it changed everyone's computer. Like, you woke up one day and everything you had known had just shifted without asking you or giving you an option. People really revolted back at that. And so it gave, the live tile Metro thing a really bad start on PC. And I think that definitely affected phones in the long run, because if people saw Windows phones, they're like, oh god, that's like that stupid thing on my PC. I hate that. Why do I want it on my phones? I think it was a spiraling effect. And while live tiles on phones, I still will, say forever that it's probably one of the best UI paradigms that we'll never see again. It doesn't make a lot of sense as the larger the screen gets, it makes less sense. They try to bring them to Xbox to a lesser extent, and it doesn't make that much sense there. When I'm using, Surface Studio 2 is what I'm using right now, I don't really ever use the live tiles. Now, you could say on a device it's like a 10-inch device, something like the Surface Go. That's where it's like, I could see a lot of people going like, oh, I use live tiles a lot there, used a full screen start menu. But as the screens get bigger and you go to 13 and 14-inch laptops and higher than that, live tiles don't make a ton of sense. And then once mobile is gone, it's like, yeah, you're right. I mean, developers aren't really using this stuff anymore, and it's just becoming de-emphasized. And Microsoft now seems to be going, well, we're just going to start using the UI model that most people are familiar with. When you look at an iPhone, you look at Android, it's a static icons that sit on your screen. Yeah, it's boring. At least Android allows you to do stuff a little bit more.
Yeah, well, Microsoft did the research, and a lot of people got confused at live tiles because they're changing and they're adaptive, and they're they're not the same thing all the time. So if you are somebody who does things based on and what something looks like some people remember their passcodes just based on the position of the buttons on the screen. They don't remember the numbers; they just remember where the button is. The same thing can happen with icons. You may just remember a specific icon, but not where it's located. And then if that icon's changing all the time, then you lose it. It's like, oh, where is it? I've lost the damn icon. So that's something they learned from their research. And also, me and Dan saw some numbers from an internal doc a couple of years ago now. So it is some old data, but I don't think it's improved much. I would be surprised if it has. Nobody customizes the start menu. Very few people do, compared to the number of Windows users there are. The percentage of people who customize the start menu that we saw, it's not incredibly high. So why not just make it very simple, a quick app launcher for the things that you haven't got pinned to the taskbar? I think that makes sense. And moving on to something else that was in the build, the new Windows Lite Action Center / Control Center UI is in there as well. So visually, and I'm not sure if this will be the same, all this is subject to change, of course, but in the build, the Action Center button has the Control Center, or the quick actions, if you will, visually separated from the notifications. They're now in like slightly rounded boxes on top of each other, which looks kind of nice. Again, its UI is not done. There's lots of work to be done here, but it's mimicking Chrome OS. If you've ever used Chrome OS, you click on that button in the bottom right, and that brings up the quick actions for Chrome OS, as well as whatever notifications you have in the system on top of that. It's very much the same thing. There's also a new emoji picker they're working on that was just in this build for some reason, which is nice. It has GIF support, so if you're looking forward to GIF support in Windows, then that's good news as well.
You mean GIFs?
GIFs. I refuse to say GIFs. I'm sorry.
I refuse to say GIFs.
All right, well, there you go. We can go our separate ways. But yes, the new start menu is interesting. It has a search bar at the top, which actually do searches, it's a search bar. Has your rounded profile picture at the top as well, except it's not breaking out the start menu yet because it's not done. And also, the implementation of this new start menu on desktop is really kind of weird because it's an option that's hidden below the classic start menu. So the current start menu is now called Classic when this is enabled, and the new one's called Start Insiders, which makes me believe that Microsoft is planning to ship this on desktop at some point, which I wasn't expecting this. I thought the Windows Lite elements specifically would be exclusive to Windows Lite and Windows 10 would be remaining as is. But if they're naming it Start Insiders, then perhaps they are at least planning to test it on desktop builds before Lite launches.
Both ways, but I could definitely see them and I say both ways because we've talked about how Windows Lite could have more of a clean break, and it's like it looks different, and you don't get confused between the two. That said, we know for a fact that the current start menu hasn't been updated since 2015.
Yeah, the live tiles.
Outside of the switch to XAML, I think at some point or something, but. Even if, I don't know, I feel like there was time for a change anyway. It's not unusual that companies every, couple of years want to be like, hey, times have changed. We're going to modernize this. It just happens to be that the concept here, the modality is actually kind of shifting too. But I can definitely see them going this route because we talked about those numbers before. People aren't using the start menu right now, and they're not customizing it. So what's there to lose by
changing
perhaps bringing a newer, more consumer-friendly model over? What are people going to do? Not use it? We're already there.
I mean, so I made a tweet this week. Someone was like, "Why does Microsoft keep removing all of this stuff from Windows?" And I just replied, "Microsoft is removing all the things people don't use because that's basically what they're doing."
Yeah.
All of that's going away because people don't use it. And also, it's not just people, but developers don't use them either. It's a two-way street here. Both developers and consumers aren't using these features. Consumers aren't using them because developers aren't building for them, and vice versa. It's a cat and mouse. There's no winners anywhere. So Microsoft is pulling all the crap that just isn't being used. There's no point in investing resources into it. And since no one uses the start menu anyway, why does it have to be this complex thing that you need to customize and change? Just have it as an app launcher. Just make it a simple app launcher, and we go from there.
There's also just OS evolution, and this is again something I've been excuse me, getting dry here. Something I've been really harping on for years, which is you keep building out an operating system and you keep adding more stuff into it. But if you don't take stuff off, it eventually gets just really, really bloated. And that's where we are right now with iOS. iOS 13 to me is not some streamlined, super efficient system. It's got a lot of stuff in it that even I don't know how to use.
That's where we are with Windows, right? In the grand scheme of things, of all of Windows, it still supports Windows 95 programs. We're at a point where it's quite bloated now. It's time for something new, guys.
But I think it should be a policy almost for all companies, whether it's Google or Apple and Microsoft, that if you're going to be adding features, you should also have a team looking at removing things that people aren't using. Mm-hmm. That to me is efficient. And right now I feel like the current paradigm is just add stuff and then maybe eventually sometimes get rid of things. I mean, you see Apple and Google pulling things out of their respective operating systems as they go on. And there is this just natural evolution. Times change, new features come out, new studies show things, and they want to try it out. So I think it's a smart policy if they're like, we're going to be adding all this stuff here, but we've also looked at these things and we're going to remove them because system resources, file sizes, they're not infinite. Like you can't just keep blowing up the OS. Like Microsoft has done a very good job with Windows 10 with getting its install and its partition size down pretty small. And if anything, they want to keep making that smaller and more efficient. Windows Lite will probably be the culmination of that. But you don't get there by just keep adding stuff and building on top of everything without looking at what doesn't work, including things like Paint 3D and Remix and things that we've seen that are getting kind of jettisoned. And so I think we have this sidetrack just quickly in syntactic theory, linguistics. Noam Chomsky, who's sort of the father of the field, built out this huge, massive theory with other colleagues and stuff like that for like 40 years. And then it was in the 90s, he did this thing called the minimalist program. And he was like, all right, we got this huge, massive theory machinery. And technically it works, but we don't know if that's actually how the system is organized, or have we built this theory and it works because we have all this machinery. And so the minimalist program was like, how much can we cut off of all this and still make it work? And it was a really interesting system because theories should be simple, right? They should be, and that's what I feel like Microsoft should be doing with its operating system at all times. It's looking at how to make it more efficient. So yeah, they should have a policy where every time they add something, something is on that table to be removed. So if that's their policy, cool. If not, and this is just random, then they need someone like me in charge. So, but
so someone's asking if this, basically they're saying, is this the state of the start menu on the actual Light OS builds? It's a bit better on the Light OS builds. This is been in the works for a while, but Windows Lite's not coming until next year. They might announce it in October if we're lucky, but I do not expect to see it shipping on devices until next year. So there's plenty of time for them to smooth out the UI, because lots of people are worried about this UI. The problem with it is that right now on desktop, it's not implemented properly on desktop. It looks much better natively on Windows Lite, but also the icons are all as a mix of just of all different eras that Microsoft has designed icons in. So there's Windows Vista icons in there, there's Windows 8 icons in there, there's Windows 10 icons in there, and there's now the new Fluent Design icons in there as well. It's a mix of inconsistent icon design, and that's the biggest problem with it right now. So when you're looking at it and you're like, oh god, this is really ugly. A, it's really nowhere near done. B, all the UI elements are just sort of off-center and just gross. And C, the icon design isn't there yet. Once Microsoft is ready to announce this properly, I assume they will show it off when it's closer to done than in this current state. It really does suck that this leaks. One of the reasons me and Dan haven't leaked any actual screenshots of Light or even Andromeda back when that was a thing was because it wasn't done and it didn't look great. And I didn't want people getting the wrong idea, going, oh, Microsoft's design is still terrible and stuff. And then Microsoft went ahead and leaked it anyway. So what can you do?
Yeah, and so that one question I have is what we have seen of Windows Lite has the start in the center.
Right, so yeah, so not everything in Windows Lite is in this build, just so you know. It's just the start menu and the Action Center design. It seems to be.
We don't know what their plans are for that if they're doing this with Windows 10, right?
I don't think they will. I would be surprised if they move the start button to the center, or if they center the taskbar entirely. That would be a shock to me if they did that. I mean, to be fair, this is a shock to me that they're designing this start menu for desktop. Like I said, we don't know if it will actually ship on desktop, or if the plan is just to use the Insider program to test it with the intention of never shipping it there and only using it on Lite,
right.
Or they may be planning to launch it on desktop full time. We have no idea. But the taskbar stuff is XAML taskbar, I believe it is, and the XAML taskbar is not on desktop. At least it's not in the build or the branch that we got.
Yeah, right. The start system, the tiles are XAML, but I don't think the start.
I think the start menu itself is XAML based now, and the taskbar, the bar along the bottom of the screen, is still old school Windows.
Right.
And then the Action Center stuff is also XAML as well. I believe most of the flyouts are XAML as well at this point.
They're trying to get everything to XAML because it's way more efficient.
And they do have a XAML taskbar. Seashell, if you ever have a device running Seashell, that is a XAML version of the taskbar. It's much more modern stuff. And that's the one when running Windows Lite, which has the centered buttons, which is start button, task view, and all of the open apps open up in the center. It's just a design choice. A lot of people have been like, why are they doing that? It's just different. I mean, there's no real benefit or retraction in user experience by putting it in the middle. Mac OS has icons in the middle. It works fine there. Chrome OS, I think, has them in the middle as well. At least in tablet mode, they do. Yeah. So it's just a design choice. There's no real reason for or against it. And it looks nice. I mean, it does look nice. If you can go back and look at our Windows like concept image that we sort of drew up to sort of show you what it looks like, or what the plan is, what it will look like, and that's basically what they're going for. You can see the start menu design in that. It resembles this one quite a bit. There may be an extra row of icons at this point, and there's now a suggested bit at the top, which is contextual, which I guess ties into timeline and all those sort of Cortana activities. But overall,
there's another argument to be made that unifying or having overlapping start menu designs for Windows 10 and Windows Lite makes sense from an engineering perspective. Now, like I said, like Windows 10's start menu hasn't changed at all in years, so I don't think maintaining it is an issue. But I guess it makes sense if you're going to have an engineering team, you have to, as much overlap as you can between the two systems going forward. So that may be another reason why they're pursuing this.
I do think if Microsoft is sort of moving away from live tiles and has no intentions to maintain them or keep pushing developers to build them, then I don't see why they would keep live tiles around on desktop as well. I just didn't expect it to happen this quickly. I was expecting Windows Lite to launch, and then over like a couple of years after that, then we would start seeing Microsoft get rid of the live tiles on desktop and stuff. But apparently we're moving quicker than I was anticipating them to, which is fine. I mean, I guess we'll see what Microsoft's plans are when they are ready to announce. I mean, they leaked it, so they're probably now thinking about an announcement of some kind, because like I said, the reaction to this start menu was not good, and I'm hoping Microsoft doesn't actually take all the feedback they're getting from this to heart, because it's not finished. Right. I hope they don't cancel this whole project because then everyone's like, oh, I hate this, so this is a terrible idea, because it's not finished, guys. You need to,
it is kind of ridiculous. I mean, if you ever see how app development or OS development works, and that's where Microsoft needs to come out with the sizzler reel to show what their vision is for Windows 10. Because although in the past they've done that too, and that hasn't completely worked out. Even on this one, right? You have the circular photo of yourself, but it's still
not breaking out of the window. Yeah,
it's not breaking out.
You see it in all the concepts. Whenever it shows up in code, it's never broken out the window. It's like that must be the hardest thing to code or something. Come on, Microsoft, you can do it. You can break it out of the UI and make it look nice.
Someone says, so I guess there's still hope for a Windows COS launch this year. Launch is a vague term.
It will launch on HoloLens 2 this year. But you won't, right. And you might see them announce Windows Lite, but I do not expect it to launch. I don't think you'll be able to buy a device with Windows Lite this year. I'd be very shocked if you can. They might start doing previews. They might do a preview program for it where you have to like sideload an FFU onto a list of supported devices. I don't know. That's not confirmed. It's something they could do, but I'm not sure if they will. They might just launch it next year. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm still not. My hunch is summer 2020.
Yeah, at least summer 2020.
Yeah, I think that's when we'll hear more about it before then. In fact, Zach and I were talking about that the other day. The times between they announced Windows 10 and it actually shipped, and same with Windows 8 and all this kind of stuff. So there is precedent. They rarely have ever gone, here's Windows 8, and we're going to launch it right now. Go get it. Like, that's never really happened. So it probably won't happen either with this operating system. But yeah, all eyes are in October. But as we know, things shift, plans shift. In fact, I'll share with Zach after this podcast something that shifted just as we were talking.
Okay.
So these dates are always kind of moving around, so we'll have to kind of see. But at least we know stuff's being worked on. So
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad this leaks, because now Microsoft has a reason to start talking about it, because it's like it's no longer conspicuous or like secretive and stuff. It's not longer just our word for it, right? It's not just people, Microsoft bloggers going, oh, they're doing this random stuff. Now, like, the actual bits have leaked in some way that there's no sort of hiding behind it. Someone on Reddit can't be like, oh, this guy's an idiot. He has no idea what he's talking about, because I can point at the live code and be like, are you sure? So this is good.
Cortana's dead.
And Cortana's
pulling
dead.
It out.
Yeah, it's totally dead. Goodbye.
Speaking of new UI elements, let's talk about the new Xbox dashboard, which apparently is like an A/B testing, I believe, for those on the insider track on Xbox's skip ahead. As not everyone is getting this. I haven't checked my Xbox. I haven't checked my Xboxes in a while if I'm not even on the insider programs anymore. I think I am, but I don't think I'm on the fast stuff. But Jez Corden, our games editor, did a video of this. So although we'll talk about it here, go to our YouTube channel at Windows Central. You can go watch his walkthrough and full of his audio clipping too. But it's so let's talk about this. So currently the Xbox UI is multi-paged. So I
Yeah.
believe there's 4 pages. You have the main one, and then you basically tab over and you go to like Mixer and the store, and then Community, I think was the other one. And it was fine in the sense you got a full screen view of whatever thing you went to, but I do feel it slowed down interaction. I went to the store less frequently ever since they did that because it was like 2 jumps over and it was a little bit slow. And what they did was they went to just a single page now. And instead of those basically separate tabs, those other things now are basically icons that sit below in the little area. So you have a Mixer one, you have the store and Community, and you just click them and then it just opens up the experience. And navigation definitely seems faster. Now, Jez was fully honest. He's like, I haven't been able to run these side by side with the old version with this new version, but he says, you know, it feels faster. And we joke around about that around here because that's always this fun placebo effect. But it did look like it was a quicker system. And conceptually, it should be. If you have like, instead of 4 tabs open, just one, or, limited, fewer resources are being used, it should be faster. But it's also just kind of cleaner looking. Now, there are still, I don't say, well, I guess some of them are sponsored tiles, but the Discover tab, which basically gives you hints at things that you may be interested in. I don't ever have an issue with this stuff because I talked about this in the past. I don't follow Xbox news night and day. I don't know when new games come out. Sometimes I'll see it on Twitter. I think Wolfenstein, the expansion pack, came out today. I couldn't tell you when the new Doom game comes out. I think it's in the fall. So I'm one of those people that, like, when that stuff actually does come out, I actually do appreciate seeing that little box there. It does help me, like, oh, well, let me go check that out now. Even the Switch has this kind of issue. Discovery is a little bit tricky on the Switch sometimes. So I like this new UI. I think it looks really good. They did sort of remove Cortana. It's still technically there, but it's not, and again, do voice assistants make sense on a console? I think it makes sense from what we all used it for, which was, hey, Xbox, pause pause. You pause live TV, or go back, or volume up. That's all I ever used it for.
So this is actually quite interesting because it wasn't clear on the blog post. It made it sound like all on console voice commands were going away. That's not true. If you still have a Kinect, you can still use Xbox on, Xbox volume up, Xbox volume down. What's happening is they're just removing the on-device Cortana experience. So you could access the Cortana UI stuff on Xbox up until this update, and also you could use the voice commands as well. But they're just taking that away because it was slow and nobody really used it. There could have been a good use case for it had Microsoft pursued its original plan of making the Xbox One a hub for everything, as well as smart devices and whatnot. That could have been fun to be like, Xbox, turn the lights on, and it would have been able to do it and stuff. But now they are relegating that experience to just using cloud-based assistants instead. So you can still use Cortana and Alexa in this case, but only if you have a dedicated Cortana or Alexa device externally linked up to your Xbox to do it. So it uses the cloud. It is a bit slower, which a lot of people don't like, but it does still work. So I can still use the Harman Kardon Invoke, for example, or my Windows 10 PC to say, hey, Cortana, Xbox on, and the Xbox will still come on and stuff. So
now, do you use that, though?
I do. But they're the only 2 commands I use, Xbox on and Xbox off.
See, I just have a remote, so I just turn it on.
I can't sometimes, the remote's over there. Yeah, so I do use those, but that's basically what I use for those. You are right, it is a very niche thing, not many people use it, but it's nice that they are keeping around the cloud-based ones, because why not?
Yeah, and so this gets back to, again, efficiency by potentially removing, theoretically, this Cortana layer and bits in there, and they free up some resources. I mean, anytime you have like a microphone running and a system running that's sitting there in the background, like I don't think it's free. And Xbox has always had not an issue, but resources are tight on Xbox, and we know this because it's running like 3 operating systems at the same time, which is still insane.
It's so overly complicated. I feel like they make it purposely really complicated. It's like, just make one OS and just let it run that.
yeah, it's not. Yeah, when you think of the Xbox, it's not
even Scarlet, although it's a Windows Core OS device, it is still running multiple operating systems. It still has the old operating system for the Xbox One and all the backwards compatibility stuff. It's a mishmash of all sorts. It's crazy what the Xbox team architecturally has to do to make an Xbox run. It's insane.
Franken OS.
Yeah, seriously.
So any expectation when this is going to be released? I imagine the fall.
I believe it's 1910, which is October, or no, like the October, November. It will be a 19H2 tech type build of sorts. So it'll be around those months in the fall. Yeah, I have the new dashboard. I literally got it last night. It's like Joe said, it's okay, but then again, I've never been too impressed with the Xbox dashboard's designs. The Xbox 360 really nailed it, I think. But then
the cards,
but with Xbox One, they sort of fell off the boat a bit, and it got worse at some point, and it got really slow once Windows 10 was introduced on it and stuff, and then it got a bit better and a bit better. And I liked the current one as well, but I mean, both the current one and this new one that's coming, they don't excite me that much. I think they really just dropped the ball with UI design when it comes to the dashboard this generation. PS4 nailed it. All gamers say that the PS4 dashboard is leaps and bounds better than the Xbox One, and I'm inclined to agree. Yeah, because it's just easier. Again, they got rid of.
I've heard the opposite.
Really?
I've heard their dashboard's terrible.
Well, it's simple. It's just like it's a bunch of icons, and you go between them, and you click on it. Then you get to your games, and you go to your game, or you get to your apps, and you go to. It's basically just. It's a very simple dashboard, but it gets to what you want. It gets you to where you need to be very quickly. Whereas the Xbox One is all like swiping between screens and clicking on this button here to go into this new UI, so then you can click on a game, or then you have to tab down here to get to an app and then press on an app and stuff. So it is more buttons and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully Xbox Scarlet has an entire new UI that's actually thought about from the ground up, because they need it.
I think this stuff is difficult. I mean, I don't go to school for engineering and UX design or UI design, so I think it's always tough I think that there's always just two issues. One is designing it, but then also like the Windows 8 thing, right? So you think you have a good UI, you think it's intuitive, it's simple to use, and then you roll it out and people hate it. And that's always sort of the risk here, which is if you do too dramatic of a change, people are like, like, what the hell did you do? I was fine with the way it was. I don't know where my stuff is. And so it's always a tough thing where you're right in the sense like maybe the new Xbox will, because anytime you launch a new hardware, you kind of get that little window where you can kind of get away with doing this stuff. But then you had to maintain two different versions of your dashboard, and that's problematic and inefficient. So I don't, I'm not jealous of these people that have to work on this stuff. It's pretty difficult, but
yeah, I hope Xbox Scarlet's dashboard is seashell based. That'd be fun. Well, nice and fluid and animation heavy. That'd be really cool.
And all this stuff is funny too, because like I've been talking about how I've been using the Switch a lot lately, and the Switch is like I love it because of the games I play on there, but the hardware is terrible. Like it gets the job done, but it's really overpriced, and it really feels like just a child's toy. But the UI is also just super basic, and it's been out for like what, 2 years now. Like I can't even set like a wallpaper.
Yeah, I assume that's because most people are just there for the games. They're not there to like customize the device, right?
But how? To me, that's basic. It's like you want to like they give you black or white as your option. That's it. That's the only customization you can kind of do on this thing, which I think is weird 2 years out that they wouldn't be like, hey, you can now set your game background or do something like. They really haven't added any features to it, and that's sort of difference I feel like with even my Tesla gets features every month.
Can you set a wallpaper on your Tesla?
No, not yet, but I did just get another update last night. I added a bunch of new stuff, so that's cool. But like, I just feel like sometimes these game manufacturers, they're kind of all have their pros and cons. It depends what you're kind of looking for.
Yeah. On the subject of the Nintendo, quick, slightly off topic, did you see the Nintendo Switch Lite announcement?
Yes.
What are your thoughts
yes,
on that?
I like the concept a lot. So I've joked around. I've had the Switch now for over a year, and I go through periods where I don't ever use it. I didn't actually plug it into my TV until about 3 weeks ago for the first time.
There you go.
And it was, and then I went out and I bought a controller for it, which is basically an Xbox controller, which is kind of funny. And I was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool. But I'm still one of those people where it's sort of like my Xbox is my console gaming,
Right. Yeah.
and the reason I use a Switch is because I want to sit on the couch and just have that personalized, just play kind of a fun game. Uh, and that's how I still see the distinction. And because of that, this new light one, which if you guys haven't followed, basically you can't remove the Joy Cons anymore. So it's strictly a handheld. It's basically a traditional Game Boy, which is how I always use this device. So I like the colors. The price point is way better because at $300, I still think the Switch is a ripoff. It really is. But if you use it, it's fine. This doesn't feel like a $300 device. I mean, geez, you can buy an Xbox for that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, $200 price point I think is nice. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I would buy the Lite over the regular Switch if I could.
Cool. All right, shall we move on to our last topic of the day, the HP Pro X3. This is an interesting device. You know me, I like to get hold of unreleased devices and review them for you guys. And the only reason we review them is because you click on them. People are like, oh, why did you keep talking about Windows Phone? It makes me sad. And I'm like, we keep talking about it because you keep clicking on the links. So if you don't want us to talk about it anymore, stop clicking on these articles. But yes, the HP Pro X3 is a Windows phone that HP was working on, not as a successor to the Elite X3, but more like a cousin/brother, aimed at a slightly different audience. So for those who don't remember, the HP Elite X3 was a Windows phone that HP built with the enterprise in mind. It was very enterprise focused. They spoke primarily their enterprise partners and customers when building this device. And consumers weren't really considered, although consumers could go out and buy it. I was one of those people, and so was Dan. It wasn't a phone designed for them. It came preloaded with a whole bunch of enterprise-grade software. It had a whole ecosystem of enterprise-grade accessories for first-line workers and cashiers and all kinds of people. And it was also very expensive. It was $800 starting, which in 2016 was a lot of money for a smartphone. Now, these days with $1,000 smartphone starting, it doesn't seem like that much, but $800 was, and still is really, quite a lot of money for a smartphone. So it priced itself out of the market for most Windows Phone fans. And HP sort of knew this, so they were also working on a more consumer-orientated version. I won't say it was strictly for consumers, because it's still very enterprisey here and there, but it was designed to be cheaper, and also be much more marketable for people who aren't working in an enterprise. So the differences between this, the HP Elite X3 and the HP Pro X3 is with design primarily. Although they look kind of similar, the Pro X3 is slightly smaller, albeit with a very, very slightly bigger screen. The HP Elite X3 is 5.96 inches and the HP Pro X3 is 5.99 inches. But the overall design of it is slightly smaller than the Elite X3. So the bezels around the sides, top and bottom, are slightly thinner, which actually makes a big difference in your hand. It's also made of metal, which would make it one of very few Windows 10 mobile devices that were metal. All of them are all plastic for some reason, for the most part. But yes, this is an all-metal phone, which means it doesn't have wireless charging, but it feels excellent in the hand. It might be the most premium Windows 10 mobile device that I've ever held.
They were all plastic.
Yeah,
so.
or the Alcatel was glass. Technically, the Alcatel would have been more premium.
Yeah, the Idol 4S.
Yeah.
That was still one of my favorite phones.
Yeah, me too. I really like that phone. So this comes in second for the most premium, but it still feels great in the hand. It's cold to the touch. It's heavy. It just feels like a great phone. Around the front, there's grey accents along the top and bottom, which again just makes it look really nice. It also makes it look the screen look more bezel-less for some reason. I don't know how it works, but it does. There are some downgrades, however. It is still a Snapdragon 820, which was the exact same as the Elite X3. It's still 4 gigs of RAM, but the screen has been downgraded from an OLED, a 1440p OLED, to a 1080p IPS panel. It's not a bad screen, but it's not the best screen I've ever seen either. I have no complaints with it. It's basically like an iPhone XR screen compared to an iPhone XS screen. The XS screen is better in every way, but if you're using a XR, you're not going to have any problems with it. Windows
Phone's fonts and tile design always lent itself to looking better at lower resolutions. Yeah. Other operating systems. You could always get away with full HD on it and still been looking pretty good.
Yeah, you could. The other downgrade they did, and this one's actually quite kind of a big one, they downgraded the speaker system from a dual front-facing system to a single down-firing system, which sucks. The speaker on here, it's not great. You wouldn't.
Still a problem. 2019.
Is it really?
Yeah, sure. I'm expecting the P30 Pro in soon, and so my famous Mate 20X monster device has a speaker up here and speaker at the bottom, so you get the dual stereo effect. The P30 Pro has the screen vibrates for the earpiece, no speaker there, and then you have a single firing speaker at the bottom.
That's terrible.
Which if you cover with your finger, it gets muffled. I mean, you still have a lot of phones that do that.
Yeah, but so that's what this has. It's a down-firing speaker, and it's not great at that. It doesn't have wireless charging because it is metal, although in 2017, which is when this was supposed to be released, I don't think that's too big of a deal. It has iris recognition for logging in, as well as the fingerprint, just like the Elite X3. However, the fingerprint reader on the back is slightly smaller for some reason. It's still accurate and as fast as it was on the Elite X3 as well. Camera system, identical across both. For some reason, they didn't update the camera hardware at all. The only difference is with the flash on the Pro X3, it has a dual tone LED flash instead of the single tone on the Elite X3. And that's basically all the differences and similarities between them. Like I said, it was a phone designed to be more approachable by consumers and people who aren't in the enterprise. And had Windows 10 Mobile stuck around, this probably would have shipped, because this was aimed, from what I understand, I've spoken to a few people about this, I don't know if this is all correct, but HP was building this device and planned to release it in the summer of 2017. Now, as you'll know, by that point, Microsoft had already made the decision internally to wind down development of Windows 10 Mobile after the Creators Update, which was launched in March 2017. And I'm assuming Microsoft started communicating this plan with partners even before that. So after this device sort of popped up at MWC briefly, before HP took it away again, they might have still been planning to launch it then, but then slightly, not long after that, I'm sure Microsoft was like, hey, HP, we're done with mobile. And that's essentially what killed this device off. There were rumors after that in October of 2017 that HP were working on a successor to the Elite X3 that runs Android called the Pro X3. That was this device. Once Microsoft was done with mobile, HP was like, well, let's try and make it run Android. And that was never successful. They never shipped it. And to be fair, I'm not sure if there's a market for a HP device running Android aimed at consumers. The biggest sort of selling point for this device was the X3 part of it, which was the fact that it was a phone, a laptop, and a desktop, if you wanted it to be. So yeah, that's the life and death of the HP Pro X3. It's interesting. On the back, if you're watching the video podcast, you'll see that it uses the old school, I say old school, the sort of consumer, is it the consumer version or just like the cheaper logo, where it's the rounded logo instead of the sort of angular one that they have on the Elite books and stuff?
As far as I know, no, I think it's just the angular one they use now. So
I think they use the rounded one still on the cheaper devices, like the HP Stream series and stuff still has the rounded logo. I'm guessing it's a price thing.
I don't use poor laptops.
I'm guessing it's like a price differentiator, like the angular one is for the more premium devices and this one is for the cheaper ones, or maybe the angular one's for more enterprise grade hardware and the rounded one's for more consumer. I don't know the distinction between them, but they have two logos for some reason. But yeah, that's the life and death of the HP Pro X3. We finally know what it is. Do you remember when it showed up at MWC and was like, oh, look at that, it's a new Elite?
I remember me asking HP PR and they gave me a little wink, like, yeah, we got something coming. Yeah, poor HP. They were a great partner with Microsoft and went all in on this stuff, and I think they went above and beyond what was expected. Yeah, the camera was not great, but listen, it took Samsung, I always say this, it took Samsung 6 iterations of the Galaxy to get good, and that's because they spent millions of dollars. You had to spend millions to get this. Razer couldn't do it either. That's what killed the Razer phone. Had the Razer phone had like a modestly above average camera that was actually pretty good, I think Razer's phone would still be doing well. But
it is crazy to me how many people rely on the camera quality for their smartphones. I'm not a huge smartphone camera guy. I don't really care about the smartphone quality.
A lot of people do.
I know they do. It is insane. I mean, like OnePlus, like the camera on the OnePlus 7 Pro for me is more than enough. But a lot of people hate it. They're like, the camera is just awful. But I don't really see it. It works for me.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's sort of like OnePlus's cameras have always been like pretty good, like B minus.
Yeah, they're not. They're just not A star.
Yeah, whereas when you look at what the Windows Phone generic camera modules were, they were always like C minus.
Yeah, should we talk about that? We should talk about the reason for that. A lot of people were never like always wondering why is it that only the Nokia/Microsoft ones had the best cameras, and it's because Nokia/Microsoft were kind of cheating when it comes to cameras software design. They had access to like APIs and sort of undocumented APIs and system capabilities that other OEMs didn't for some reason. At least that's what I believe. Like HP and say Samsung and HTC, all the others had to rely on like generic APIs and stuff, and there wasn't a lot they could do. Whereas Nokia and Microsoft themselves obviously were able to sort of tap into the system and take advantage of the operating system to its fullest, which is why the cameras on the Nokias and their Microsoft devices were always the best compared to other Windows Phone devices. Whereas on Android it's different. On Android you build your own camera software more or less, and and you can do what you want there. Whereas on Windows Phone, you had to use the Microsoft one that was built into the operating system. So yeah, I think that's the reason why.
Yeah, no, it's true. And HP had a long hill to climb up to compete with that, and they might have eventually got there. Keep in mind, I spoke to a lot of people who are working on this phone, and the head engineer. Like a lot of these people came from Nokia. They were the ex-Lumia people who had no more job. And so, you had those people, you had people, I think, from Palm, and you had kind of people all over so it wasn't like their PC guys were like, all right, let's try and make a phone. They actually, and that's why I think, you gave that phone such a good review. It's because you could see they knew how to do the hardware, but yeah, it was the camera. And it was, Nokia both helped and destroyed Windows Phone. It helped because damn, they made some really amazing hardware. I mean, and the Lumia 920 to me is still the pinnacle phone. I don't care what our poll says. But that really set the bar for everything. But I also remember vividly that Nokia was getting all this exclusive apps. They were getting special versions of WhatsApp and all these special things. And it was only on their store. And they used it as a differentiator. And boy, did they use it as a sword. Because if you bought a Lumia phone, you got all sorts of cool apps that other Windows phones just didn't have access to. And that was always kind of unfair. Now, Nokia, they were like, well, we have those apps because we have teams that went out of developers who we paid and they paid to make those apps happen. So we basically paid for that. So I get that angle, but that definitely hurt companies like Samsung and LG who are like, well, they've like put the table and went home. They're like, well, screw this. We're not getting those apps. And then the camera stuff was just so far ahead. And that eventually squeezed out Samsung and LG and even HTC. And that was at a time when, they really kind of needed those partners, right? And so if a Lumia 920 or even a 930 or 925, if those were just available on all carriers, you could just buy them, or you can even go on Amazon and buy it unlocked and just put your SIM in. And just, if that was the case, like an iPhone was, I think Nokia would have been fine. But Nokia had to fall into that whole trap of carrier exclusives. So we'd see a phone launch on one carrier, none of the other carriers would get it. And then Verizon would get their own special customized version of it. And they would they would ruin it. And so that was the world we lived in. It was just like, even Nokia couldn't figure that one out. They were good at those carrier deals. Now, since then, the world has changed, right? We don't really get custom phones anymore on carriers. I think maybe Sprint still does that nonsense. But for most part, you get the same phone on whatever carrier you go to. Had that world existed back then in 2014, things could have been very different. But that fragmentation between Nokia and the fragmentation between the other OEMs, it was just not a good time. And HP had to come in and, try to fill that in. And and then Microsoft was like, well, no one's buying these things, so.
R.I.P. Windows Phone. It's almost dead, guys. December, whatever the date is, I can't remember. It's happening in December. I'm going to hold a funeral for it.
Yep. And no, we are not expecting an Android phone from Microsoft.
Well, not right now. We're not. No.
Yeah, I just don't see them ever doing that. I think people are getting a little too over exuberant about that story about Centaurus running Android
Yeah.
apps. We've talked
Yeah.
about this in the past. Like, this thing is not going to like boot up the Google Play Store, and you're going to download Google Maps and Gmail and Snapchat, and then you're going to have Windows. That's
Yeah. That's
probably,
not
if
what
that's
it
what you're
is.
expecting, step down and take a
Stop
deep breath.
expecting it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I doubt very much that's what's going to happen. I think that story is, I didn't like that story because I think there's some truth to it. I think it's setting expectations a bit high. I think anytime you tell people like emulation, it's like, yeah, it's gonna be able to run this, it's like,
Well,
oh,
it's funny because lots of people when they hear the word emulation, they think terrible performance, bad experience. But Xbox One runs emulation for the Xbox 360 and Xbox original
yeah.
back compatibility, and that's amazing. It feels native. Like there are good ways of doing emulation, so I wouldn't, get too upset at the fact that emulation is a possibility, but I don't think it'll be as native to the experience as people are thinking. I don't think it'll be in a story or grade thing. I think it'll just be Microsoft is allowing developers like BlueStacks to run their virtualization software on top of Windows if the user goes and downloads it. Because it's very easy for Windows Lite and Windows Core OS itself to not support that because it's a lockdown platform, but I believe the plan is just to open the platform up to emulation software like VirtualBox and BlueStacks and VMware so they can build their own programs for Windows Core.
Just to defend Razer, someone says Razer's phones look terrible, giant bezels, too square. I can kind of sympathize with too
I
square.
do agree with that a little bit.
But the giant bezels were because they were giant speakers.
Yeah, no,
Like,
you are right as well.
And let's be clear, that display is a 120 hertz display, which they were the first ones to do that. Like it's a really
wasn't
good display.
OLED, so I don't care.
Right. But it was I liked the Razer phone. It was fun. I'm not saying it was a perfect phone, but I really enjoyed using it. It feels cool in the hand. It was nice to type on. Now I want to go fire it up. Actually, I might go fire it up just to
So your afternoon
turn
activity.
on a while. Once you go to 120 hertz screen, you change your mind if you saw this thing in person. The audio was pretty awesome. They did something different. You gotta give them credit. Like, that phone looked like nothing else on the market, and it was built for mostly gamers, and it matched their laptops.
Yeah, I do like that. That's why I want Microsoft to make a Surface phone, so it matches my laptop. That's the primary reason I want them to make a phone, is so I can pull it out and go, oh, look, it's the same as my laptop. But can't do that right now because they don't have one.
True.
Should we briefly talk about Microsoft's earnings? Because we didn't do that in the last podcast. I haven't looked at them. I do know.
Neither have I.
I do know that Xbox did not too well, but everything else did really well. Surface is up, Windows is up, everything is up except for gaming. Gaming is not up, so that's not great. But
Is it down or just
it
flat?
was down, I believe. I believe it was down, but I want to talk about Surface quick because it was up quite a bit. It's actually doing really well right now. And remember that analyst who said that Surface was going away this year? I'm still waiting for the signs that business is failing and Microsoft is about to kill it, because I ain't seen that sign yet.
Yeah. Well, plus we'll got October, which will be a fun month. So
Yeah.
a lot to look forward there. But yeah, bottom line, Microsoft's still making a ton of money, still getting a lot of goodwill. I did see Common last night on Desus and Mero on Showtime, and they brought up the Microsoft commercial and like how iconic it is to have Common on that. So now Microsoft's doing well, but yeah, they got to. I still want a wearable from them. I want to see what their take is on a wearable. I want to see a version 2 of Surface headphones. I did just try on the new Bose headphones, the ones that replace the QC35-2s. I was hanging out with Mr. Mobile, aka Fisher, this week, Michael Fisher, and he let me try his. And they're pretty darn good. They address a lot of the reasons I didn't like the QC35-2s, including the audio quality is better, USB Type-C charging, and it's just smaller. But Surface headphones, I feel like the Surface headphones were a solid version 1 attempt, but everybody is already rushing ahead, and they gotta like quickly iterate on this stuff because those cans are still a little bit too big. But the Surface headphones still have the best user interaction model for any headphone I've ever used. So again, they've done something different.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, hopefully we'll see that. We're not expecting a wearable, but I really, if you guys are listening, Panos and Ralph, can you do a wearable, please? Because I'm off the Apple Watch. I'm just using Fitbit right now.
Yeah, I'm back on my
And,
Fitbit as well.
and it's like I love the Apple Watch. I actually do really enjoy it. I just hate the iPhone. So if I could use my Apple Watch with my Android phone, I'd actually be happy. Fitbit is good, but I mean the notifications are just like sometimes they come through,
Yeah, it's
sometimes
not
they
great.
don't. It's just like this is again what people are clamoring for, which is we have this, we have this, and everybody's like, can we have this thing in the middle? And that's what Microsoft was good at with Windows Phone. It was something in the middle. And I'm looking for the same thing for a wearable. It's like I don't want an Apple Watch, or I'd rather I do, just not exclusive. Android Wear still sucks. So like I need something else. And if anyone could pull it off, it's that Surface team. I have a lot of faith in them. I don't know. Hopefully they're doing something.
Real quick, I just want to go back to the Xbox comment just to confirm. Yes, Xbox revenue did decline. Gaming revenue declined 10%. With Xbox software and services revenue also declining 3%. Xbox console hardware sales were down 48%.
Ouch.
Yeah, so no one's buying Xboxes. That's basically what that means.
Now, of course, I don't know how's that compare. Is that's year over year?
I believe so. Yeah.
Because it is an off season technically. Like I expect the holiday season to set the ramp.
Well, on that subject, Surface grew 14%. You know, it's still growing. It's not doing terrible.
Yeah, and that's what they want, right? They still don't want to beat their partners, which probably won't ever happen. But they want to have that growth, that slow, like, yeah, it's getting bigger and bigger.
Also, the fact that Microsoft has announced Xbox Scarlet now, a lot of people might just be like, I'm not going to buy an Xbox One now. I'm just going to wait for the next gen.
It's true.
So, yeah, that might play a factor. But yeah, overall, great earnings from Microsoft this quarter. Well done.
The next Xbox rumored to have an SSD. It's not really a rumor. They flat out said it's going to have an SSD.
I'm pretty sure they confirmed it, yeah.
Not only that, they said they basically invented a new style of SSD, a new technology.
It's called Microsoft SSD.
Yeah, so that's not a rumor. It's true. It's going to have SSD. SSDs are cheap. You could put one in. SSDs aren't that cheap.
They are. I'm pretty sure they're the 100. I mean, not huge and like storage, but 120 gigs you can get for like $60 these days.
Sure. Now go up to a terabyte.
No, I know it's more expensive.
They get ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
SSDs are, and compared to a hard drive, no, SSDs are expensive. Like hard drives, you can like for $20 almost. They're stupid cheap. Now SSDs are still. No, that they keep getting more expensive because they keep going way, way faster. As you can see at the new PCIe.
Get to a point where they can't get any faster, right? But at some point they'll just start loading things before you think about it.
Yeah. Well, you got the big story with 9th gen and specifically 10th gen Intel is you're going to have support for Intel Optane, which is you can think of as a small memory buffer that sits between the SSD storage and then the motherboard and processor that acts almost as like a RAM that can hold info in there temporarily. So for things you use a lot, they kind of launch a little bit faster. So that's the next innovation. It's already in a few laptops. The HP Spectre X360 15-inch with 4K OLED already has that in there, and you'll start to see more laptops with it too. But this idea of putting a cache buffer between the SSD and the board is you're going to start to see a lot more of it. That's basically what Xbox is doing here too. So yeah, you throw Intel Optane in there, you throw PCIe 4 in there. The good news is your hard drive is no longer the bottleneck on your system, and that's the way it should be. Because if you run a hard disk drive, that's the bottleneck.
Yeah.
Like it sucks. I cannot use a gaming laptop with a hard disk drive. Luckily, they're very rare now. But 2 years ago, they were still like pretty popular.
I can't use anything with a disk drive. It's just awful.
It really is.
Windows 10 specifically is really bad on spinning disks. For some reason, it's just there's no. I guess there's very little people.
It's an inefficient system.
Yeah, it really is. Windows gets so sluggish on a hard drive.
Yep, but it's cheap. And listen, I wish the Xbox One had SSD, but damn it, you can buy an Xbox One for like $200.
Yeah. And also, it's fine on the Xbox. Like you don't know any different on the Xbox.
Yeah, I mean,
and even then, like people have upgraded theirs to SSDs, and it's the performance doesn't improve that much on an Xbox One because of the ports themselves. So like their PC, they're like 2.0. I don't think they're 3.0. So it's like there's no point doing it anyway.
Yeah, they're not going to put in super fast connection for a hard disk drive. They'll never utilize it. That's why you need the special boards and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, if you put a 500 gig or 1 terabyte SSD, if you buy one of those, that's like that would be half the cost of the Xbox if they were to do that. So,
Yeah.
anyway, let's wrap it up. We're going to now do Q&A with the audience if they have any. And this is where we leave you guys off. If you're listening to this recorded, unfortunately, you don't get to hear that because it's just a lot of weird ums and pauses as we're reading things. Although the answers are, I would like to think, spectacular. And if you'd like to actually hear those answers, you can definitely join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on mixer.com/Windows Central or youtube.com, where we're also at Windows Central there. And you can jump into the chat, ask us questions, make jokes, tell us we look dumb. It's whatever you want. Other than that, though, we'll be back next week. So hit me up on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Leave me questions, comments, tell me how we can do this better. Save me with Zach at ZACBOWDEN. And as always, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Sweet. Oh, Jason says we look super awesome. Thanks, Jason. Jason, we still need to get you on the podcast. Are we allowed to just invite you on without talking to PR? Because if so, then absolutely come on. But otherwise, don't, because you'll get in trouble.
So what happened this week?
Yeah. Jason, I saw you was on a podcast. Yeah, PR do get weird and when you are on a podcast for official Microsoft reasons without talking to them first.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, you'd be on to talk about the Insider podcast.
Talk about Texas.
Yeah.
And why we don't want to mess with it.
And North Face. Why are you such a fan of North Face?
Yeah.
I want to know. We'll finally find out. Right. Any questions? What are we expecting at the October event this month, I assume? Well, so we're expecting refreshes of basically all of the existing products of Surface except Studio. So I'm thinking we'll see an update to the Surface Book with just in better specs internally and stuff. I'm not expecting any major redesigns for the Book Pro or laptop, but we are expecting them to get updated with new processor and whatnot, and USB-C in place of the Surface Connect port. Then there's also the possibility that we might see Centaurus, which is the foldable Windows Lite device. I don't know if that's going to actually happen. There was talk internally that that's where they were aiming to announce it and stuff. But even if they do announce it there, since Windows Lite won't be ready until next year, I don't think you'll be able to buy it straight away. I think they'll just announce it and then ship it in the spring slash summer. Which I don't know if that actually makes sense to do. I'm not sure if it makes sense to announce a device and then not ship it for 6 months. It might make more sense to just tease it or just not talk about it at all, which would be a shame, but I don't know what the plan is. And if they announce Windows Lite, then anything could happen. We'll have to see. Then I think there's also a rumor of something else. There's a fifth device.
Did you mention the buds?
Sorry. So there's a rumor that there will be a pair of new Surface headphones in the form of earbuds, like in-ear headphones instead of over-ear. They're codenamed Morrison. And then I'm sure there's something else. We might see a Surface
Did you
Go.
mention the Surface Pro ARM?
Sorry. That's what I meant when just internal refreshes. With the Surface Pro, we are expecting new Intel chips as well as an ARM variant.
Yeah,
but it will look the
there's
same.
Like two things we're combining, two rumors: Surface Pro 7 and then a Surface Pro or a Surface ARM device, maybe one and the same.
Yeah. And I don't think we're expecting a Surface Go with ARM. I wouldn't expect that until next year once Windows Lite's ready, because I think the Surface Go is an excellent candidate for Windows Lite as well. So we'll have to see regarding that. But yeah, that's what we're kind of expecting / hearing on the down low. All of that can change, of course, up until the day of the event. So if something isn't there that we just mentioned, then don't blame us. Blame Microsoft.
Safe to assume Intel Ice Lake processors for the Surface event. Yeah, I would say yes. I've seen a lot of devices come out with Ice Lake, and time frame looks to be October for those. That is, they'll be announced before October and on sale around October, November. That lines up nicely with what Microsoft is doing. Microsoft, however, traditionally has been a little bit conservative on these chips. We'll talk about maybe Ice Lake next week a little bit. I have a lot to say on it. I think I'm a huge supporter of ARM. Anyone who listens to this podcast knows that. I will say I think Intel is playing hardball with its 10th gen stuff. It doesn't mean OEMs are giving up on ARM. Far from it. If you're an OEM, you just look at this as competition. You're like, all right, Qualcomm, what can you do for us? All right, Intel, what can you do for us? And it works out best because we end up getting the best chip available. But the Intel 10th Gen, I'm seeing a lot of interest from OEMs, and I think it makes a lot of sense. They get Bluetooth 5, Wi-Fi 6, Thunderbolt 3, all built right into this chip. There's, of course, options for LTE built in. It's a smaller board, more power efficient. And I think Intel is keeping its prices pretty tight to compete with Qualcomm. And you'll start to see a lot of 10th Gen stuff. And I'm actually pretty excited about 10th Gen. It's going to allow devices to get either thinner or just get way more battery life, right? Depends how an OEM wants to cut that pie. But it's going to be 10th Gen should be finally a nice substantial bump, and we'll see more devices with Thunderbolt 3 built in. Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5 are pretty awesome, so it's all good.
On the subject of Intel, Jason's asking, what do you guys think of Apple buying Intel's smartphone modem business?
Yeah, I think this was the right decision. First of all, chump change for Apple. This is $1 billion. The company made like $48 billion in revenue or something like that last quarter, and they have like $240 billion in the bank. So this is like nothing for them to do. Now, the reason they're doing this is because they hate Qualcomm, plain and simple. Qualcomm, I like Qualcomm better today than I did 10 years ago. But they play for keeps, right? They patent everything and they enforce their patents. And you can make a good argument that they're even unfair about how they treat some kind of companies, including Apple. And so Apple recently settled with Qualcomm and agreed to, I think it's a 6-year deal or something like that. And once that happened and that deal went in place, Intel was like, well, Apple was going to be our biggest partner for these new 5G modems. They're now going with Qualcomm. We're folding up shop. We're getting rid of and they literally announced, I think the next day, that they're getting rid of their 5G modem initiative. And then Apple was just like, well, we can buy it and we'll just take over that project and we'll just, yep.
So are Apple required to use Qualcomm for the next 6 iPhones then? They're not, okay.
No, they're not required, but the thing is no one expects, and that's what I wanted to say here, do not expect to see the results of this acquisition for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You don't just walk into building 5G. And one of the reasons why Intel was wiping their hands of this is because it's a hard business. Qualcomm was so far ahead already, and it's not like Intel had a chip that was awesome and it was like, we're ready to sell it. They weren't even close to that. So I imagine we'll go a couple of years with iPhones and Qualcomm, but at some point, this is the bigger story is about the engineers and building up that momentum. So in a couple of years, they can pull away fully from Qualcomm, just like they did with their regular ARM processors. From that perspective, I think it was a brilliant idea. I think it's a very it's a heavy sink, right? You're putting a lot of money into making your own chips, but I think the benefits they reap from it has been excellent.
Apple loves making their own chips
because they can customize that chip and maximize it. Now the only thing they don't do is GPUs, but they can really maximize that processor with their software, with their drivers. They don't like the problem with NVIDIA is like if you have a GPU, they have to build it for like every computer in the world that can run Windows. And that's where you get the driver issue. You have to build one driver that can run on everything, and that's where you get problems. Apple is just like, we're just going to tweak our driver, to it's perfect. And so there's a huge benefit. I know a lot of people are going to bring up Microsoft, like, oh, why does Microsoft do this? Like, because I don't think Microsoft is really in the hardware game. Yeah, they make Surface, but it's not meant to be their bread and butter, right? Like if HP, Dell, Lenovo, Acer, Asus, Razer all were like, we're out of PCs, then Microsoft would probably invest heavily in this, but it's a lot of money to do it. And I think they'd rather have their partners take up that. And Microsoft is in this position in life right now. They're like, it's not about us just succeeding. It's about working with other companies and helping those companies succeed. So they'd rather work with Qualcomm. They'd rather work with Intel, not to destroy those companies or hope that one of them fails, but so they all benefit, which is why, talk about October, there's speculation. I think you talked about the Surface laptop, maybe AMD this time. We're going to see maybe an Intel, devices, but we also may see an ARM. Like you're going to see that spread, and I think that's what Microsoft's going to do.
I think it makes sense to do that as well. Someone's asking, what mic do you use? I'm currently using, this is a new mic, the HyperX Quadcast. It's a cool mic. It has a red light on it. It's great. Sounds good though, I think. Hopefully you agreed. Someone else is asking. Here's a question. How do you feel that pretty much all operating systems are becoming hosts to a static grid of apps? I think that's the way to go because people aren't using devices for the operating system anymore. They're using them for the apps. Like everything is a service these days. You just want to get into the app that you want to use. You don't really care about customizing your iPhone is like living proof that people don't care about customizing their devices. It's the least amount of customization of any platform. It's you can move icons around, you can change the wallpaper, and now you can do dark mode. That's it. And even then, most people don't. If you look at like normal people's home screens, it's usually the default home screen on page one, and then the next page is just all the apps that they installed in the order they installed them. People just don't care. They just don't care about customizing their stuff. And I think lots of people building operating systems have realized this now. But yeah, I don't see the problem. As long as I can... Yeah, I just don't see a problem with it. Like even with Android, I don't customize Android that much anymore. I'm not even using the Microsoft launcher right now.
What?
I know. But
are you in the beta? You saw the new beta, right?
Yeah.
They put the buttons at the bottom. It's cool.
Yeah.
With the demise of LiveTile on Windows Lite, will there be any more development on PWA plus PWA supporting the LiveTiles and other Windows APIs? No, I don't see how that's related. The UWP aspect for PWAs, the LiveTile was but one aspect of it. Notifications are another, jump lists are another, the container, the store wrapping, the distribution through the store, all that stuff is still part of the, what you're calling PWA plus UWP combo. The LiveTile, I mean, I don't even think I'm not even sure if they have LiveTiles.
Who? Sorry, what's that?
For PWAs.
Some PWAs can support LiveTiles.
They can, but not a lot
most of them don't.
Yeah, so I don't see it as a big deal at all. I think we'll still see Microsoft push heavily on PWAs, and they should. I'm still a big fan of it.
Any more questions? When will Windows 10 8.03 go out of support? I think it's already out of support. It's about to go out of support. It only had 12 months. So upgrade.
Someone asked about AMD and Surface Pro. I don't think it's Surface Pro. We're hearing possibly Surface Laptop maybe get AMD chips.
It'll be AMD for the Surface Laptop. Surface Pro will be a split between ARM and Intel, and the Surface Book will be all Intel. I believe is the plan. That could change, but we'll see. Jason says, just noted my shirt. Thanks. This is my favorite Microsoft shirt. This is a cool one.
Is that the Halo one?
No, this is the Contoso one. The one that had Build 2017, I think. Jason, DM me your Microsoft email and I will talk to PR about getting you on the show. I'll just tell them, hey, we're up for it. He's up for it. If you want to talk to him about it, and I'll just forward them your contact details and stuff. Unless you know how to get in contact with them already, then of course you can do it. But yeah, I'm happy to sort of get the conversation rolling if you like.
Someone's asking about when Edge Beta will be available. Someone says Edge Beta is already out. Actually, Edge Beta isn't out. It's Canary Dev is out.
Yeah, Canary Dev are out officially. The Edge Beta leaked a while back, and it does work. The Edge Beta is on my girlfriend's laptop, and it works fine. But yeah, it's not officially out yet, and I'm not sure why. It should be hit by now. I mean, I don't know what they're waiting for. Maybe they're waiting for like feature to have all the features in that they're planning to ship in the beta. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm still expecting Edge to be GA'd by the end of this year. Because it has to be, right? If they're planning to ship it in 20H1, it has to be GA'd way before that. So we'll have to see.
You think Microsoft will release a handheld device like Switch once xCloud launches? I'd love that for it to happen. I don't have high hopes for it. From what I understand, the Xbox team isn't keen on releasing a handheld device. But I don't know. I'd like to see maybe the partners come in and do something with that stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But yeah, nothing we're hearing so far. Why the Win Beta channel got deleted? Did it?
I don't know. I can check, I guess. I'm not sure if it did. I don't know why. You mean Win Beta is in the website Win Beta, now known as On Microsoft? No, their channel's still there. On Microsoft it's called now, though.
Yeah.
There's some free advertising from the Microsoft YouTube channel. Any idea what's going on with Bing and Maps? Is MS growing Bing? That's a good question. I don't know what's going on with Maps. So Bing seems to be doing okay. It's all like it's powered by all of Microsoft.
It's a Bing Insider program.
Azure. Microsoft loves Bing because it's Azure. And it's like 100% Azure, so they love it. So it's not going away. And it powers things like Timeline and Cortana and blah blah blah. The Microsoft Graph is everywhere. Bing is everywhere. So it's not going away. I don't know what's going on with Maps though. Maps. I don't think they're getting rid of Maps either.
Until they can get Google Maps, they're going to need Maps.
Yeah, it's true. With Twitch and YouTube dominant in the field, what do you think Microsoft can do to differentiate or expand the reach of Mixer? It's a good question. I think Game Pass and the xCloud stuff might have something to do with this. I wouldn't be surprised if the plan is to do something similar to what Google Stadia is doing with YouTube, like integration there, but with Mixer. So xCloud and Mixer sort of go hand in hand. You can be watching someone play a game, then you can jump in real time and join them, or something or other along those lines. So yeah, I'm not too sure what else they can do. I'm not sure how successful Mixer has been for Microsoft. I don't think they divulge those numbers. So we'll have to see. Jason's saying bye. Bye, Jason. Yes, I'll talk to PR and stuff. So we'll see what happens there. Can't use Bing Maps on Android. That's true. You can through the web browser though. If you go to, hang on, let's see if this works. I assume this works. If you go to maps.bing.com, didn't work. Hang on. And surely you can get access to maps through the mobile website. I don't think you can. You can't. Okay, I lied. Never mind. That's terrible. Right, a few more questions, then we're going to head off because it's hot in here and I need some air. Man, the weather's been so bad in this country. It's been so hot.
Welcome to the future. Enjoy it. Don't have kids.
Climate emergency. It's here. People get so upset when you talk about climate change. It's like, don't get upset. It's true. It's happening.
I shrug. Anything that destroys the human race quicker, I am supportive of.
So self-loathing.
Oh, I'm fine. If everyone was like me, the world would be awesome.
Everyone would be indoors all the time.
Thank you, everybody. I'll be back next week. Don't forget to spay and neuter your partners. All right.
Are we done?
There we go. I'm hungry.
Oh, hang on. There's one more question. Do you guys use the Surface headphones on your PC? Dan mentioned that he's looking forward to version 2. Would you want in V2 of Surface headphones? I use them for traveling. They're basically my travel headphones. I don't use them at home really because I have a Harman speaker over there and that's pretty great. And when I'm just popping in and out, I prefer just in-ear ones because they're easier to carry around and stuff. My Surface headphones are my travel headphones when I go long distance.
I've been using my Bose more than my Surface ones now. I know.
Tracer.
You know what it is? The Bose fold and they're smaller.
Yeah, the Surface headphones are big.
Yeah.
They are big.
So.
All right, we are done. Thank you, guys. We'll be back next time. As always, follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated, etc., etc. Goodbye.